Hi, my name is Chloe Giovanetti. This is my project one for Sports Med 3. It's on strength and conditioning shoulder. So project introduction, a little overview. My patient is Claire. She's been playing volleyball for around 6 years now. And throughout volleyball practices and games, she experiences extreme shoulder pain, discomfort, shoulder muscle fatigue. So those shoulders feeling really weak easily and just getting super tired and not as hard throughout the practices and games, weakening over that duration. So our outcomes and goals of this project were to strengthen, condition, and recover. We're focusing on two main muscle groups, so strengthening the deltoid and then that group of rotator cuff muscles, conditioning to make more consistent, stronger hits for the whole duration of practices or games, all while being pain-free, so that by the end of those practices and games, she's not feeling super painful and everything. And then also recovery. So we were doing heating before and ice after, including rest days. So just heating before all of the practice and games, getting good stretches in, which I'll go more in depth with, and then icing after, and then including rest days where she's just not focusing on volleyball. She's focusing on heating and icing shoulder and making sure that's feeling pretty good. So, why strength and conditioning? The importance of strength and conditioning. The number one reason is injury prevention. So, a very, very common injuries with shoulder for volleyball players, shoulder impingement, rotator cuff strains and tearing, and shoulder instability and dislocations are all super common injuries with volleyball hitters. And with Claire in that middle position, she's at risk of this, which is why she needs to participate in good habits with strength and conditioning. So like I said, the muscles we were focusing on are the rotator cuff muscles and the deltoid. The rotator cuff muscles consist of the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis, and all of those work together to stabilize the joint and facilitate rotational movement. So during all that range of motion, during her serving, during her hitting, and all of those shoulder movements she does as a volleyball player, those rotator cuff muscles make up that and provide the support for that shoulder joint. And then same with the deltoid, it's a significant role in shoulder stabilization when hitting. And this is just as important as the rotator cuff muscles. On the right, we have some pictures of some injuries that can come from improper strength and conditioning with volleyball players. So we have that shoulder impingement in the top left. That's a representation, that's a picture of a shoulder impingement. In that bottom left, we have a tear in the deltoid muscle, rotator cuff tear. And then we have a shoulder dislocation shown on the bigger picture on the right. So for plan and schedule, strengthening wise, we did a series of weightlifting and a variety of band exercises. Some of the weightlifting movements we did were overhead presses, front raises, bent over lateral raises. These are all weighted. We tried to progress as the weeks went on. Between week 1 and week 2, we tried to up the weight in those. And then same with band exercises. So some of the band exercises we did were 2-hand resistance, working out both of the shoulders at the same time. And then resistance pulling up, resistance pulling down, and then resistance pulling to the side. To the right, I have some pictures of the muscles that we were working on, just more in depth. So yeah, that's just going to show the deltoid, and then all of those, just a better picture of all of those muscles that we were working out. And then plan and schedule conditioning wise. So like I was saying kind of earlier, warm up and cool down. So before practice, that pre-practice habits we built were arm circles, ball tosses, heat pack and stretching. And that was all before practices and games. And so we got a good amount of those in, just making sure she's feeling really warm and ready to do activity. And then ice after, we made sure that after all of her practices, after all of her games, we're icing her shoulder and making sure around 15 minutes off, and then hour in between, just making sure she's cooling that down after she got that good warm up in and activity done. And then another part of the conditioning was our goal of muscular stamina. So our main goal was to make sure that she can do all of these activities, have a 2-hour, 3-hour practice, 3-hour game, however long it takes, and not get super muscle fatigue and just feeling like her muscles are way weaker than they were at the beginning by the end of practices. And just overall, these habits of good pre and post workout habits that you can build are good for long and short term injury prevention, and all of that is just super good habits to build, and they result in long and short term benefits. Okay, so here's a video of, I have the links below the pictures. We have some rotator cuff exercises that we were doing with bands. So on the left is a picture. She's pulling up with resistance, and that's a good. So these are going to be, like I said, rotator cuff muscle workouts. This was week 1. She couldn't do a lot of resistance. She had a little bit of pain after this. And then on the right, we just have her pulling to the side. Again, those are working the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, all of those muscles making up the main shoulder joint, rotator cuff muscles. And then here we have deltoid exercises on the week 1. These are weighted. Again, links are below the pictures, linked to the YouTube video of her doing these exercises. We have adduction, abduction. She's doing controlled abduction away from her body, and then also keeping it controlled on the way down with weights. And we tried to up the weight by week 2, which again I will get into. And then we have some shoulder presses shown to the right. Okay, now we're getting into week 2. These are some more resistance band exercises. She was able to increase the intensity of the resistance by week 2. She wasn't as sore and all of that afterwards. And like I said, here she's doing this one. She's pulling it apart, and I had her hold the band a little close together, and like how far close together could she hold her hands to create that more resistance, pulling it farther apart. And then on the right, this one was harder for her, so we're pulling it down, but by week 2, she actually had that pretty good, and we used a thicker band for thicker resistance, and she actually did pretty good for that. Again, rotator cuff muscles, that's what this mainly is focusing on with this resistant band exercises. So week 2 deltoid, we have some more shoulder presses and some more of those bent over lateral raises. Weighted, we went a little bit up in weight, did a little bit more reps, and again, deltoid muscles. This is super, super important to have for her, that shoulder stabilization. Like I said, again, there's the YouTube link to both of those to watch her doing those movements and exercises. So week 1, we can look at this chart. It went down pretty significantly. Her hitting between the beginning and end of practice, we have 27 miles an hour versus 23 at the end. Average serving speed was 26 and 23 at the end. And you can just kind of take a look at this. Average hitting by day 2, 27, 24. Serving was 26 and 23. So going down by a couple miles an hour, she just couldn't have that strength at the end of practice that she did at the beginning, because her shoulders are just feeling super weak and not as strong as they were. Day 3, we got a little bit better. We have 2 miles an hour and 1 mile an hour between the serving. And then we go into week 2. Week 2 was actually a lot better. We have only by 0.3 between the hitting and end of, mile an hour difference between hitting speed at the beginning versus hitting speed at the end. And by the end, pretty much it was the same. We have 31.3, 31.1 between the difference of hitting on that day 3, week 2. We had games the other days, so we didn't have a lot of time to record, but honestly, the progress was great. We made sure she was comfortable with all that heating and exercises, good pre- and post-workout habits, and by the end, she was feeling way more comfortable, and I'm really glad I got to do this with Claire, and I hope that she gets to continue practicing these habits even now that the project is over. It was really fun. Thank you for watching.